Hello everybody, my name is Richard Vigorelli and this is Vigorelli Institute. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about something. A little bit about world history, history of my species, our species if you will, and also maybe world building. This might be able to help you out one day. Anyway, I want to talk about an age, okay? First of all, what is an age? Well, an age is a given span of time where certain cultural ideas are important, where certain political movements are important, styles, morals, mores, those are two different things, never mind the differences, and ways of going about things are what you do, okay? Now, any given age will fall into one of four basic categories. Okay, first one is a normal age. This is just kind of how things are in a given culture, in a given country, okay, at a given level of technology. Okay, X amount of people follows a normal bell curve. Okay, X amount of those people in any given section will be doing basically the same thing. Okay, and life is pretty predictable. Okay, you get one or two neat little innovations here and there. You'll get a famous person here and there doing a thing because reasons and yada yada yada. There'll be good guys and bad guys, but other than that, really not that great. Nothing really substantial comes up. You got some good things, mind you, but nothing that's like, dude, we've got to remember that. That was cool. Okay? It'll be neat for the time, but that's about it. Okay? Then, after that age is gone, it's like it never even happened. Okay? Then, you move up a step from a normal age into a golden age. A golden age is everything is awesome. There's technological innovations, there's cultural changes, people get smarter, there's more money going around, trade is prosperous, new ideas are everywhere, people are coming up with stuff, it's amazing, what a time to be alive, it's awesome. Let's move a step down from normal age. That would be a dark age. Dark age is basically nothing's going on. Okay? You got some good stuff every now and again, but basically we're just looking for simple things, okay? Like, look, I'm not asking to live in a mansion or anything. I just want a house where the roof doesn't leak, type of thing, okay? That's a dark age. Dark ages are usually punctuated by war, cultural stagnation, fear, oppressive governments, regardless of the culture. And a lot of the people will regard this as fine. It's totally fine. Don't worry about it. It'll end eventually. We probably won't see that, but it'll end. Maybe. Now, if a dark age remains protracted, it tends to destroy civilization. Things just kind of dissolve, usually with very loud explosions. Okay? Well, this brings me to the fourth type of age, a heroic age. A heroic age is usually noted as being extremely epic. They're like golden ages, only they take the violence and uncertainty of a dark age and it gets galvanized into people, a given person, or other such individuals fighting with various factions. These are always epic. Okay? Often substantially more epic than a golden age. A golden age, you'll get famous people, but they have to come up with something really significant. A significant person in a golden age will be an inventor, an actor, a painter. Usually like an artist, an entrepreneur, an inventor of some kind, as I may have said, and so forth. A famous person from a heroic age will usually be a warrior, a general, a philosopher, a political leader, okay? Somebody that just has this personality that makes everything come into focus, makes people get up, dust themselves off, and keep moving, okay? They spawn movements. They spawn political revolutions. They spawn cultural changes, and they're drastic, highly aggressive, and very, very intense time. A lot of uncertainty in a heroic age. Now, let's look at how they move, and then we'll get a little bit more into detail here, okay? So, you have a given civilization. It starts off. Very, very seldom will a civilization start off in a normal age. At least not anymore. That's kind of more of a ancient history type of thing. Okay, but then again, may have started off in a heroic age. Most of the time, a brand new civilization, or at least the restart of a civilization, will come up during a heroic age. Okay? The United States did. So what happens is something's going on in the previous way. It sucks. Somebody galvanizes everybody, and they change it. Usually quite violently, I might add. Okay? There's this epic battle between good and evil as far as the culture is concerned, and they come out the other side with something happening. Now, if the good guys win this heroic age, oftentimes, if the victory is strong enough, okay, and the bad guys are soundly defeated, okay, they're chased back into their hole, and they don't come out for a while, then it usually turns into a golden age, because everything is brand new. I've got all this cool stuff. We can build. We can make babies. We can come up with new technology, new ways of thinking, new philosophies, new pieces of culture, forms of art, etc. And that becomes awesome. Now, if the golden age following the heroic age is short-lived, one of two things will happen. It will either dip into a normal age, and then it just kind of rides out for a little while until it either fizzles out or, something else happens. Okay? But if that golden age, the bad guys, now, if the heroic age is completely unsuccessful, okay? Well, no, let's say it's, okay, we got that. Okay, let's say it's extremely unsuccessful. Then what will happen is the bad guys will enter into a hard dark age, okay? Lots of oppression. It's absolutely horrible. It's worse than the time before the heroic age, okay? In golden age, smolden age, you're never seeing that again, buddy. Well, when that happens, then the dark age will then shift into another heroic age later with an even better hero. And the cycle starts. Now, if we can move into the golden age, everything spreads out, and then it kind of fizzles, okay? But let's say that golden age protracts. What will happen is you will hit a dark age, okay? By protracted, we're looking 1, 2, 3 generations tops, okay? And it's because the first generation that comes out of the heroic age is able to take advantage of the golden age. So they make babies, babies come up, brand new generation. They are raised essentially in comparative luxury to the way their parents were raised, so they don't entirely understand what the problem is, but they're taught, okay, you got to be smart, okay, so we got to keep this running. So usually they'll kind of keep a semblance of the golden age going, but it'll usually drop into a normal age. And the next generation after that will be completely and totally privileged. They will want for nothing, which means they value nothing. When they come of age, they tend to kill it and drop it into a dark age. Okay? This is where we get stagnation of culture, complete loss of creativity, and often hardcore political movements, which create the fear and uncertainty that then typifies a dark age. And then the cycle starts again. Okay? So, let's say you're working on a fictional story. Typically, if you want to have a really good time with it, you're going to want a hero, especially if you're doing fantasy. So typically fantasies take place either at the end of a dark age, moving into a heroic age, or smack dab in the middle of it. Generally speaking, they will not take place in a golden age or a normal age unless we're moving to a crash. Okay? That is the bad guys show up. Okay? Now, you can induce a dark age. It's actually pretty easy. All you got to do is declare a war. Okay? Usually that's caused by a foreign influence coming in and destroying that which is either being built or has been built. Because the people are either too weak to defend themselves, that would be usually a normal age, or they're too decadent. This is usually the result of a protracted golden age. Decadence being, I want for nothing, I'm bored, let's do stuff that's fun. You know, let's make babies without making babies. Let's, spend money on things we don't need. Okay? And do stuff that is completely inconsequential other than it's fun. Okay? That's a protracted golden age. Okay? The early golden ages, none of that stuff exists. It comes about later. Okay? Now, if you can cut the golden age short and drop it into a normal age, then the benefits of the golden age still exist, but the stress of a potential dark age will keep things moving. It's a little bland, but honestly, it's better than the alternative. Okay? Now, here's something interesting. If you are able to rise out of a dark age and just kind of waffle your way out, you'll hit a normal age, but it'll be creative. Okay? So it's like a very, very weak golden age. Those are usually pretty cool. Okay? 1990s comes up for that. Okay? We're talking mid to late 90s, moving into the early noughts before the Terror War happened. Okay? So let's look at the United States, okay, since that's where I live and I know its history the best. So, the American Revolt, as it's known in Europe, not the Revolutionary War, the Revolt, was a heroic age. That heroic age lasted until basically the country was solidified, give or take 20 years later. Okay, so another generation has come up. That spawned something of a golden age, but it kind of petered out because really didn't know what they were doing, and it turned into kind of a normal age, golden age hybrid. Okay? Then, give or take, 1820s to 1830s into the 1840s, arguable dark age, but I would say the normal age is starting to fall apart at that point. Okay? The United States was still expanding, still doing stuff, still coming up with things, but it wasn't like a, wow, this is amazing time period. Okay? Now, we get into the 1840s, 1850s, definite dark age. Okay? That dark age lasted, I would say, 1848 till about 1865. Why so long? Well, what most people call the American Civil War, I call it the Southern Revolt because it was a secessionary revolt, and I will die on that Bunker Hill. So, I would argue that was a dark age. Now, a lot of stuff did come out Interestingly, in a dark age, any innovations made, especially technological ones, are usually military based. Okay? Because war is endemic. Okay? So I need to find ways, if I'm living in this age and I'm an inventor, of getting rid of the guy who does not like me and who doesn't like me enough that he's willing to make me not be around. Okay? I need to do that to him first. Okay? So I'm going to come up with ways to keep him from doing it and to make me better at doing it. Okay? So you see during the during the Southern Revolt, that we come up with a slew of military technologies. Okay? They're in their infancy and they don't really mature for another 20, 30 years, but you get the idea. Okay? Then, after that, into the 1870s, 1880s, we move into kind of a normal age. Things are getting back together. It would have gone golden age, but things were not handled very well, especially politically. Okay? So we see a lot of very negative influences popping up, not only in the United States, but also the world, because they had the opportunity to do it. Okay? After that, moving 1880s, 1890s, we actually hit a golden age. It's known as the Gilded Age. This is the antebellum era for what would eventually become the First World War. This is where we see the growth and spread of the British Empire. All of the modern technologies that we now know, love, / detest today have their roots here. Okay? This is where binary was invented. This is where the car was invented, and so forth. Okay? So we see all of this innovation, all of this creation, all of this growth. And then it kind of petered out and went into a normal age. That would be the early 1900s. Ask anybody, what happened in 1905? Not a lot. How about 1910? Okay. We don't really see much going on until about, I say 18, I meant 19. Anyway. Until about 1914, because things had petered out and the bad elements saw the opportunity to do stuff. That was the start of the First World War. It plunged much of the world into a dark age, including the United States, as wars often will. Okay, war's over, 1919, and we get a spike. That is the golden age of the 20s, at least for the United States. Okay, a lot of stuff came out at that time, but it was a tainted golden age. Okay, yes, we see a lot of things in culture coming up because, interestingly, in a dark age, people take the trauma from the dark age and then parlay that into new forms of art in the golden age. Okay? Now, you can argue that because one of the natures of a heroic age is warfare, violence, uncertainty, and so forth, that the First World War became a heroic age, especially towards the end. Okay? Red Baron, for instance. Various other political movements that came up. Okay? Now, this is where the USSR found its roots, was World War I. Okay? So, depending on where you were, here in America, we hit a golden age. Okay? That golden age then hit decadence in the late 1920s, mostly due to economic mismanagement, and we plummeted into a dark age known as the Great Depression. The only thing that pulled us out of the Great Depression was the heroic age of the 1940s. That would be World War II. Yeah, heroic age. Lots of very famous people in that time period. Okay? Read a book. So, after the heroic age of the Second World War. We move into something of a protracted heroic age, moving into a golden age of the 1950s, early 1960s. 1960s then saw Red Scare after Red Scare, and that whittled away. Depending on where you were, it for the most part turned into a normal age, with some trappings of a golden age, but honestly not really. There was way too much uncertainty, and you can argue it was the start of a dark age. 1970s, definite dark age. You look at all the stuff that came out in the 1970s, it really wasn't that good, okay? You've got some decent rock music, but country was terrible, pop music was terrible. Most of the movies that came out in the 1970s were horribly done. There are a few gems, but nothing like the 50s and the 60s. Nothing like it, okay? We don't have the massive technological innovations that, as in comparative leaps forward in the 1970s that we did in the 1960s and 50s, okay? Everything just... The technology of the 70s was not far off from the technology of the 60s, okay, here in the United States. Same thing with the styles. If you look at the style of the 1960s, very bright, very colorful, very happy, very fun, but not the greatest, okay? So you get into the 70s, and instead of everything being bright and happy, for the most part it's all earth tones. You got a lot of oranges, browns, a lot of white, a lot of taupe, and so forth. Bright colors are very, very basic, okay? Not a lot of differences. Hairstyles are very bland by comparison. Yes, they were big, but, you know, everybody basically looked the same. Okay, this is also where you get, you know, the glamour shots, which are just, boy. Okay, then we get a couple of technological innovations in the early 1980s, and that spawns a golden age in the 1980s. This golden age is relatively short-lived because it kind of starts to falter as perestroika is going on, okay? It makes the world very uncertain. However, perestroika was successful, and so everything takes off. Berlin Wall falls in 1989, and we hit, instead of another golden age, a normal age. Okay, this is the early 90s. A lot of stuff did happen. When we move into the mid-90s, we start getting commonality of internet, okay? And that spawns the dot-com golden age, which lasts through the 1990s into the early noughts. The terror wars dropped us into a dark age. We tried to lift out of it, give or take 05, and we kind of did, except for one teeny tiny thing. The Great Recession happened. That kicked us into a dark age again. Okay? We have remained in this dark age up until very recently. You know what I mean. We are now in a heroic age. Whether you like the players or not, that is a fact. So, depending on what happens, at least here in the United States, and probably on a geopolitical level as well, will depend on what happens within the next 4 to 10 years. We'll see. I'm living history right now. And here I thought, you know, growing up a kid in the 90s, that nothing interesting was going to happen. Oops. So, if you're working on a book, fantasy, or whatever, maybe some historical fiction, take some of this into account. Look at how the ages behave, and look at real history. See what you can learn from it. Of course, I do that regardless. Well, thank you so much. I will be back later with something else. Like, subscribe. Please feel free to share this video. Leave a comment. Yell at me. Make fun of me. Add your 2 cents. I'll leave it up to you. Okay? Go ahead and follow me on YouTube. Excuse me. Twitter handle is in the description, along with my website, vimandvigorelli.com, if you would like to support me. I've got books, merchandise. I actually just bought some merchandise for myself. Needed a new shirt. So, I'll be back. You take care. Bye-bye.